Another loss for the Cardinals on Saturday to the Phillies. Are the Redbirds backsliding, or is Philadelphia just that good? Comment with your answer, because we're tackling that question coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer here with you, talking about the Cardinals' loss to the Phillies from Saturday, June 1st, 2024, as the Redbirds have now dropped two in a row to Philadelphia. Phillies are the best team in baseball, man, and they've showed it over the past couple of nights as the Cardinals lose this one 6-1 in Philly. Welcome into the show as we get into another quiet night offensively for the Cardinals, and this one's a bit of a bummer because Philly lost their starter early in this game. Ranger Suarez left the action after an Alec Burleson comebacker, so the Cardinals would have had a chance to get to that Philadelphia bullpen and work against them pretty well, but it just did not materialize as five different relievers for Philly ended up stymieing the Cardinals in a major way. 13 total strikeouts, as what turned into a bullpen game ended up being a nightmare for the Cardinals. Seems like that happens sometimes, more often than not, doesn't it? That the Cardinals are susceptible to the old bullpen game, and this wasn't designed to be. Ranger Suarez coming in with some of the best numbers in baseball, but leaves the game after 2 innings due to injury, and the other 7 innings the Cardinals were basically shut down, scoring just 1 run, came on a Mason Wynn sacrifice fly, and that was all she wrote for the Cardinals. On the pitching side for St. Louis, they also struck out 13 batters. Sonny Gray had 10 of them over just 5 innings, but he also made too many mistakes early and ends up losing this one. His third loss of the season to drop to 7-3. His ERA now at a clean 3.00, which is not where you want it, considering how great it was earlier in the year. But he gave up 4 earned runs today as the Cardinals lose to the Phillies 6-1. They dropped to 2 games below 500. We know that coming into this series, they were right at it. I guess the question of the day then, are we concerned? Is this the beginning of a Cardinals backslide after they had climbed the mountain back to 500? Are they about to tumble back down the hill? Or is this just an example of the Cardinals playing a really, really good Philly team, and you take the measuring stick series and maybe you measure up in a way that indicates you're not quite on their level at this point? That's what we'll talk about tonight on B-Schaeff Daily. If you like St. Louis Cardinals videos and podcasts, click subscribe to the channel. Brenden Schaeffer, St. Louis Cardinals writer. That's pretty much exactly what we do here. All season and off season too, we'll be here. Shout out, by the way, to Miles and Brock for joining the B-Schaeff Daily Gang membership. We do have channel memberships live with various perks associated. If you'd like to get involved in that, you want to support the channel, the link for channel membership is in the description to the video below. 16 channel members and counting, so thank you guys for supporting the content and the grind of building up this channel for Cardinals fans. Appreciate y'all for checking it out. I really do. But let's talk some Cardinals baseball. Are the Cardinals slipping, or was this just to be expected when you're facing off against the Phillies and their dynamite lineup and their really good pitching staff? How are Cardinals fans feeling? I tried to take the temperature a little bit with a tweet earlier tonight, basically asking the same question that we're posing here. Is this series starting to look like a little backslide for the old Cardinals? They said. Lots of people chimed in, and I think a lot of you were on the side of, hey, this is sort of what you get when you face a team like the Phillies. The Cardinals just aren't on their level, and some people expressed some very significant remorse for that. They're pretty frustrated by it, but others just understand that this might be the best team in baseball, and you're not, so you're going to have a hard time with them. I thought coming in, look, if you really want to assert yourself and show that the Cardinals are back and they mean business, you find a way to win this series 2 of 3. Realistically, though, I would have said before the series began that 1 out of 3 would have been my prediction. But the one thing I do think you can't afford is to be swept. I mean, look, you could be swept and you'd be down 3 games to 500, and then you go to Houston, and I understand the Astros have not played great baseball this year, but I do think it's going to be hard to go into their park and win a series. So maybe you drop 2 of 3 there. You could come back home to St. Louis right back in a little bit of a sour spot, 4 games below 500. Does it mean that the Cardinals aren't any good? Does it mean the season's over? It doesn't have to mean any of those things, even if that comes to fruition. But gosh dang, they had just gotten back to 500, and we made a deal of it and said, hey, they're back. They've asserted themselves. They've erase the deficit that they built. They dug themselves out of the hole. Well, if you climb right back into the grave and start piling dirt upon yourself again, it doesn't really do you much. All of that didn't really mean a whole lot to climb your way back into a 500 record at 27-27. Now they're 27-29. They are now back to third place in the NL Central, with the Cubs having surpassed them again. Cardinals, though, 7 games back of Milwaukee, who's now won 4 straight. The Brewers have the only positive run differential in the division, by the way. And the Cardinals are in a spot now where they face a potential sweep on Sunday night to the Phillies, and then you maybe find yourselves heading back toward 4th place, 5th place, with the Pittsburgh Pirates a game back of St. Louis and the Reds just a couple games back of Pittsburgh. How are we feeling about this, Cardinals fans? Because on the whole, it's been a really productive stretch for this team, but how quickly that can be taken away if you go on another losing skid. Interesting, too, to look at the MLB.com standings, and they have the expected win-loss totals based on runs scored, runs allowed. I don't know if that is a simple metric of your run differential or if it's a little bit deeper than that, because, again, if you lose 17-1 in a game, I don't know that I'm paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to that run differential because, yeah, you got clobbered, but maybe you had a position player pitch it at the end. The Cardinals haven't had that this year to my recollection. But you know what I mean? I'm just kind of curious. Regardless, expected win-loss total for the Cardinals, 23-33, and they're outperforming that by 4 games. Doesn't mean a whole lot, but it is a little bit notable that you can make the case that as mediocre as their record is, based on run differential, they could be even worse than that, and arguably should be even worse than that at a median expectation. But does it worry you that the Cardinals they've lost this series in Philadelphia, and now they've got to win the last one just to avoid a sweep? Let me know in the comments below if that is worrying to you or not. But granted, the Phillies have now won 8 in a row. They're a really, really good team. They've got the best record in baseball. They're 41-18. First team in the big leagues to 40 wins. Well, them and the Yankees. Yankees are 41-19. Phillies still have them by a half a game as of this recording. And as fun as it was to see the Cardinals battle their way back to 500, I don't think anybody was under the impression that they were as good as the Phillies necessarily. But the consistency of their game was encouraging, and if the Cardinals could have continued to pile those types of performances one after the next, then maybe they could have gotten themselves into a nice spot in the standings sooner rather than later. But now they'll be battling back. They'll be clawing their way back toward 500 once again after what we've seen over the past couple of days. Another day for the offense that just wasn't too productive, and like I said off the top, disappointing that when you only face Ranger Suarez for 2 innings, you're not able to get much done against the bullpen. Score a run in the 3rd inning on a couple of hits. Then Spencer Turnbull comes in as sort of the bulk reliever in this game. He was great. 3 innings, no hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts, just mowed him down. And then they went into the back end of their bullpen, did Philadelphia, and had no problem with it. And really, they didn't have to use too many of the leverage guys. Orion Kerkering has been really good for them this year with a 1.4 ERA. But the last 2 guys they used, Dominguez, Sir Anthony Dominguez, and Gregory Soto, I guess those are some of their setup men. Names we know, but they both got ERAs above 5 this year. Nevertheless, Philly able to get that series win locked up by Saturday. And the Cardinals will now be striving to make something happen for themselves on Sunday. Final game of the series. It'll be Sunday Night Baseball again this week, by the way, before they head out to Houston. Lance Lynn, Taijuan Walker, that's your matchup for Sunday night. In terms of the matchup Saturday, Sonny Gray. How do you feel about Sonny Gray right now with the recent, I would say, not recent struggles because he had a couple of solid starts before this one. But if you look at the month of May, it certainly didn't quite stack up to the way April went for him. And I understand this is June now. But if you count May and then add this outing to it, Sonny Gray's been a little bit lesser than, the Cy Young candidate that he was at the beginning of the year. I think, unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's performing at that pace any longer. It seemed for a little while like he might be able to be in that conversation again this year. Not necessarily destiny for him at this point, but you never know if he's able to put a run together. There's still a lot of baseball left to be played. But Sonny, I mean, it's not that he pitched terribly, but we've seen it in a number of his outings recently, just a few too many mistakes, and ends up getting punished for him. You know that Philly lineup is going to be able to punish you for the mistakes that you make. And several pitches found too much of the zone for Sonny Gray in that first inning, and he was just getting walloped for extra base hits and hard contact and damage. 3 runs allowed in the first inning. He did settle in after that, and throughout the whole thing, he was putting guys away with the strikeout. 10 Ks. He's got elite stuff. It's just, man, in that moment, first inning, I think if you take a couple of pitches and get those back, might be a different outcome for this game. But then again, the Cardinals didn't score. So it's kind of that age-old tale that, yeah, Sonny Gray didn't have a great outing, 5 innings, 4 runs, but the Cardinal offense also didn't do very much. And that's what, we talk about complete team wins. There can be such a thing as a complete team loss, and I think that certainly was the case today. Yesterday, you don't necessarily pin it too terribly much on Miles Mikolas. He gave you a quality start, 6-3. And Sonny Gray did give you a chance to win in a general sense by allowing only 4 runs, but that's not the type of start that you need from Sonny Gray. He's your ace. You do have to have higher levels of expectation from him, but I had higher levels of expectation from this Cardinal offense as well when you think about this lineup being able to get something done against a bullpen. They basically showed you everybody that they had, 5 relievers going in this game for Philly. And the Cardinals only come up with the 1 run. They had 5 hits in the game and no walks, which is kind of a rarity. Not able to draw any walks, and they strike out a lot. So maybe not the most disciplined outing for the Cardinals, but also trying to make something happen for themselves with some aggression. Only extra base hit in the game was by Michael Ciani, who had a double. And that was all she wrote on the Cardinals side. Phillies had a double by Alec Boehm. Nick Castellanos had one. That was in that first inning. And then Bryce Harper got one off of John King. Home run later in the game to account for a couple more runs for Philadelphia. Wrapping up the previous topic about Sonny, are you concerned about him? Not concerned, but I do think it sort of points to if Sonny Gray is not going to be that just overwhelming dominant ace and he's going to be more of a standard number 1 in the rotation, that's okay. I still think he's going to have a really strong year, but you're seeing a few dings in the armor for him. And the Cardinals, I don't know that they have a ton of margin necessarily for error from their best players. Because this team, it looks as though the makeup of this team could be somewhere middle of the pack, and the margins and the little things are going to make the difference as to whether the Cardinals can be a team that climbs from, if they're a 81-win roster, can they find a way to play their way into 85, 86 wins? Or do they play a little bit below their capabilities and they only win 76, 77 games? I think anywhere in that range, the Cardinals could conceivably land. And for a while, you were sort of counting on Sonny Gray as every 5th day, you're basically going to get a win because he's going to pitch well enough that as long as the offense does a little something, you're going to get one. And he's 7-3 on the year. I think he's taken a decision in every start that he's had. So Cardinals are winning more of the Sonny Gray starts than they're not. But it's just not a given anymore when you go 5 innings, 4 runs. The mistakes are, they were basically non-existent at the beginning, and now you're starting to see them. They're still not all too frequent, but it's happened a little more often for Sonny Gray recently. So is it a concern? Do I think he's, going to be average this year? No, I think he's going to have a really good season. But just reckoning with the fact that he's maybe not going to be Cy Young just reminds you of maybe the deficits you have elsewhere on your roster, and you sort of realize, okay, this one player can do a lot for you, but he's not going to be able to single-handedly cover up a lot of blemishes every 5th day. He'll do it on occasion, and more often than not, he'll probably do it. But tonight was another one where he was not able to do it. I mentioned the home run by Bryce Harper. Here's another thing that I do think is it's concerning, but I also don't know that there's anything that can be done about it. It's just kind of what it is, and you have to hope this player finds a way to turn it around. But John King gave up the homer to Bryce Harper, and really that only came to fruition after a Nolan Arenado throwing error, which is not an infrequent occurrence for him this season. I think at this point, we sort of have to reckon with that. His 5th error of the season, which the last time he made an error, it was his 4th error, and we went through and we looked at the pace he was on and said it's not all too dissimilar to what he did last year. And now with 5 errors after 56 games, he's on pace for 14, 15 errors, something like that. Maybe a little bit up from usual. But more concerning is just the general state of his play defensively. Obviously, offensively, you've had the inconsistencies, and he had another 0 for Had an 0 for 4 night tonight. I won't say another because he homered in game 1 of this series. But 0 for 4 tonight with 2 strikeouts. He's down to 675 on the OPS and 252 on the batting average. But defensively, you don't expect it to be a concern. But Arenado, again, concern, I don't know if that's the right word because it is what it is, but if you look at defensive runs saved, and I know that's not the only metric, it's not the end-all be-all, but do you realize that per defensive runs saved coming into play on Saturday, Nolan Arenado was dead last in baseball among third basemen. He was the worst third baseman in the league defensively per defensive runs saved. He's a -6, and that was before the error on Saturday night. -6 in defensive runs saved. That's dead last among third basemen in MLB. So are you concerned about Nolan Arenado's defense? Or is it just one of those things that you feel like is going to come around because it's always been there? Or do you kind of take the thought process of, well, yeah, it's always been there until it sort of wasn't as much consistently last year? And you recall that was the first time he didn't win a Gold Glove in his career. Had 10 straight to begin the career. And then last year he was a +1 defensive run save for the whole season. So basically average. And if you looked at other total zone, total fielding runs above average, zone rating, he was negative in some categories defensively last year for the first time ever. And this year he is a -6 in defensive runs saved. If the Cardinals don't have a plus elite Gold Glove caliber version of Nolan Arenado at third, that's just another ding, another mark against what this Cardinals team could be, because that's an area that you just figure is a given. And look, I think if you asked Ollie Marmol about it, if you asked the Cardinals, I don't know, they might give the standard line of, oh, we know what Arenado's capable of. He's greatness over there at third base, and he'll get it together. He'll get it going. But last year, combined with what we've seen so far this year, there does seem to be a stark difference in every other year of his career. He's never been a negative defensively. And I don't know that it's fair to just look at defensive runs saved and say that's what he is, but he's not automatic. And maybe he never was, because you look through his career, there's never a year where he didn't make some errors. But the fact that the errors are also coinciding with just a general malaise to some of the defensive metrics that try to measure the effectiveness of these guys, I don't know. I don't know what that means for the pitching staff. There have been some times that you can think back to innings that have been extended by Arenado errors this year, and that's just not something we're used to seeing year over year. But this year, it's not. You can't really say that anymore. It's not something we're used to seeing, because it seems like the 5 errors, it's not all too outside the bounds for what he's done in his career. I can run through his career quickly. Number of errors: 11, 15, 17, 13, 9, 14, 9, 3 in 2020, 11, 12, 9, and now he's up to 5. So certainly an uptick compared to last year. He only had 9. 9 error-wise was a pretty good number for him last year. And you might say, why is he making so many errors every year? He plays third base, and that's a tough spot to play. You're going to make errors. Guys are going to make errors. So it's not as much about just counting the errors in this conversation as it is, look, the metrics are basically saying he's not been effective. He's a -6 in defensive runs saved. I don't know what to make of that. Do I think he'll finish as a -6? I don't. I'm inclined to just believe that he's going to come around. But as his offense has slumped this year, is it an example of taking it into the field with him, or is he just kind of out of sorts as a player in more general sense? Let me know your thoughts on Arenado after another error today, and Harper ends up getting the homer later that inning. Can't really say it's uncharacteristic to see him struggle in the field a little bit right now, because through a third of a season, like we can talk about how the sample is not very large to minimize it, but it is more than a third of the season at this point. It's kind of jarring. I saw that stat of, I'm like, lowest in the league for defensive runs saved. That doesn't, for third baseman, that's not Arenado, but it has been this year. So we have to call it what it is. Again, if you gave me over under 0.5 defensive runs saved for the year, I'll still bet on Arenado. I'll say over. I'll say he gets it back. But that's a little bit blind faith at this point, just trusting what his track record has been, more so than what we've seen through 56 games this year. So that's what's going on there. A couple more topics I want to get to before we get out of here for a shorter episode of B-Schaeff Daily today. Ryan Ludus finally made his debut. Relief pitcher, the Wash U grad, the Washington University pitcher, had signed with the Cardinals and worked his way through the minor league system and had his debut tonight. Obviously, Cardinals down big late, so he ends up coming in to pitch the last inning. There hadn't been obvious opportunities, perhaps, to use him prior to this. The game the Cardinals won 7-1 a number of days ago, I thought the ninth inning would have been a good spot for him. I think that was Cincinnati. But at any rate, they use him here, and scoreless inning. Had a little bit of traffic, gave up a hit and a walk, but you know what? It's been almost 2 weeks, I think, since he had pitched. So a little bit of rust would be understandable and probably expected there. But now he's got a 0 ERA in his career as a big leaguer. So good for Ryan Ludus. You like seeing those types of stories. Rest of the bullpen, we talked about John King, gave up the homer to Bryce Harper, but none of those runs were earned because of the Arenado error. And Ryan Fernandez was sharp. Was good to see that. Because a couple of times that they've put him in the ninth inning, it's like he's got some traffic, dealing with some damage, some danger, works around it, but this time no traffic to speak of. Inning in the third, struck out 2. Fernandez has a 3.13 ERA, has been a really good find for the Cardinals in the Rule 5 draft. We'll go to the minor leagues for our final topic of the night and talk about Jordan Walker. Did something tonight that he hadn't done all season prior. That's right. We have liftoff. Jordan Walker with his first home run of the season at any level, big leagues or AAA Memphis, as the Redbirds had a grand old time tonight, beating the Nashville Sounds 11-3. Gordon Graceffo got the win in that game. 6 innings, 2 runs allowed, 6 strikeouts, 4.42 the ERA now for Graceffo. But the story of the night, I think, has to be Jordan Walker finding a home run, and it was a moonshot out to left field. Good to see Walker find that power stroke. I don't know that it means that the Cardinals are imminently calling him right up, but it's nice to see. He had 60-something plate appearances with the Cardinals before going down, and then over 110 plate appearances with the Redbirds before finding pay dirt there with his first home run of the season. And now that he's got the monkey off his back, I feel like you'll see more of it from Jordan Walker. He kind of gave a double fist pump going around third base with a big grin on his face. He deserves it, man. Look, at a certain point, it does become a mental grind. You know what kind of hitter you are, but you haven't found one yet. And shoot, it's June, and you just haven't found one yet. But he finds one there tonight. That's nice to see. Jaywalk has the OPS there at 699 after tonight's game. It was just a 1-for-4 day, but he did reach base via walk as well, hitting 266 down there. Good to see from Jordan Walker. Elsewhere on that Memphis roster, I want to talk quickly about Matt Koperniak. I've been getting some questions about him as the Cardinals have struggled to find consistent production in center field. A solid fielding outfielder, Koperniak, he bats left, throws right, and had a really nice night today for Memphis, too, as their leadoff hitter. 3 for 5, 2 runs scored, and holy smokes, 6 runs driven in. Couple of homers for Matt Koperniak. Hit number 5 and number 6 of the season for him. He's hitting .302 with an .816 OPS now for Memphis. I don't think it would be crazy to necessarily consider Koperniak down the line in the outfield if the Cardinals continue to sort of toil away there. The names you're thinking of, Michael Ciani and Dylan Carlson, if those guys continue to struggle at the plate, which as much as I've said over and over that I like Ciani's role on the team, he had the only extra base hit for the Cardinals tonight, went 1 for 3, but he also, he's hitting .210, OPSing .541. That's not really major league caliber starter level production, even if you're the 9-hole batter. It's just not very consistent for being a daily fixture in the lineup. So we'll see, how long the Cardinals continue to go with Ciani as the main squeeze in center. I don't know that Koperniak would project to do a whole lot better, but again, he's got a .300 batting average and an over .800 OPS now after the couple of homers and 6 ribbies that he had tonight for Memphis. What a game that is. Carlson went 1 for 3 tonight, up to 146 on the average. His OPS is at least above 400 at 401, but you're really not talking about a whole lot there in terms of his production, and would like to see him get it going and just feel more comfortable defensively too. We talked yesterday about defensively just not things not looking totally right for Dylan. But wanted to give some pub to Matt Koperniak after he had a nice game and has had a nice season so far, too. One more mention, too, as we get back into talking about the big league club. Jose Fermin was batting second as the DH tonight. It was kind of one of those deals where you say, hey, we're getting him a shot. Let's get him in there. Brendan Donovan's still not in the lineup tonight for the Cardinals after he was dealing with the stiff neck on Friday, so keep an eye on that. I said DEFCON 4 yesterday. I'll bump it up to DEFCON 3 now that he's missed a second game, but I don't think there's any indication that it's going to be a long-term issue for Brendan Donovan. I'll make sure to comb through the Twitter sphere to ensure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, John Denton tweeting earlier that the Cardinals are hopeful that he will be available for pinch hitting in the game that occurred on Saturday night, but still in some pain, still stiff. So they didn't end up using him as a pinch hitter. We didn't get a Valley Sports post game to know in terms of on TV or anything whether he was available, and I don't see anything more recent about that from reporters, boots on the ground, that might have asked Ollie Marmol the question. So we'll see on Sunday whether or not Brendan Donovan's in there, but the Cardinals could use him back. I mean, you think about sort of the spark plugs to the team when things were getting going. Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan are two of them, especially when they were batting 1-2 in the order. And for the last couple of days, you've been without both of them, and for a little while now, you'll be without Lars Nootbaar. We talked about this on the big show. I don't know how many people heard the video because I mentioned yesterday I posted it at a boneheaded time. But I would say set that over under June 30th and a half on Lars Nootbaar, and I'd probably take the other side of it. I don't know if we see him in June. It's just obliques, man, especially when they said moderate. They could have said mild, and they didn't. It's moderate. So if you're talking moderate, I don't know if he's doing much activity for 2-3 weeks, and then probably will need every bit of a week to get back into the swing of things based on what Ollie Marmol has said about what they would anticipate for a rehab stint for him. So, I mean, you're talking 4 weeks. That puts you right up on that cut line of July 1st, and sometimes, best laid plans, things don't always go the way that you hope that they do for rehab. So let me know what your concern level is about the notion of the Cardinals missing Lars Nootbaar for the next month. I know tonight I'm asking about a lot of your concerns, whether you are or you aren't. And to the credit of a lot of Cardinals fans, when I asked on Twitter, you said, look, I get it. It's the Phillies. They're a great team. Doesn't mean, anybody's got to panic here about 2 losses. And look, when it was 4-0 or 4-1 or whatever it was, I was already sending the tweet out asking the question because it just didn't seem to me like it would be a night the Cardinals would do much, would mount a comeback. So I sort of mailed it in at that point mentally and thought, all right, you've lost 2. Are you concerned? And most people said, oh, no, as long as you don't get swept. I kind of thought, 1 out of 3 would be fine. But I did mention, well, they're not guaranteed to get 1 out of 3. I do think I'd take the Cardinals, though, in the pitching matchup on Sunday. Taijuan Walker's got an ERA of like 5.5 or so. Lance Lynn, I think, maybe could be in for a good one. But keep this in mind, too. I mean, when Lance Lynn struggles, he sometimes gives up a number of homers, and this is a Philly lineup that can certainly hit him. So what are your expectations for Sunday? Let me know that in the comments below as well. And get all your thoughts in on the St. Louis Cardinals as things stand, 27-29, looking to avoid the sweep on Sunday. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of the show. Thank you guys so much for listening, for commenting, for putting the likes on the video, for checking out the podcast on Spotify. Search B-Schaeff Daily to listen on Spotify or Apple Podcast if you prefer those avenues. And check out channel memberships. The link is in the description to this video if you'd like to support my channel in that way by becoming a member. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.